Okay, we're back. So I'm glad to be back with you for another episode of True Thought Miracles. This is Brother T and my beautiful wife right over there. No, she's over
Good
there.
morning.
Good
Here I
morning. Here
am.
you are.
Good
And
morning.
and we appreciate you guys for being with us today. Thanks so much for joining us. Um, we're just going to kind of continue. Time ran really quick last week when we were in our discussion, and just time just flew by. And I really enjoyed it. And so I hope you guys got some value out of it as well. I'd like to, just kind of pick up where we left off. And, that is that A Course in Miracles changed my life. I shared my story a little bit, and I shared our story a little bit. And I think you shared yours a little bit too, Claudia.
I did.
You
Yeah.
did. Yeah,
And it took us about through the whole time.
it did. It really did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we did talk about, how A Course in Miracles came into being. But what A Course in Miracles is really three books. It's three books in one, and this is the version that we teach from, because it's really um, the JCIM edition. And the reason we use this is about 25% of the text was taken out of the Foundation for Inner Peace version, the Blue Book. Nothing wrong with the Blue Book. I studied. That's how I started, was with the Blue Book, and that was where Helen and Ken Wapnick had taken out a lot of the text. But when I started studying with Jesus, who was teaching it through Rajpur, uh, this is the version that he wanted to teach from, because he wanted to continue to add. He wanted those pieces left in there that had been removed. So I just want to talk about those three sections briefly. But before I do, is there any question that you have, Claudia, that you think that we might want to address for our audience today? This is just our second episode. We're just getting started. And if this is your first time joining us, we appreciate you being here. Thanks so much. And we want to again give a shout out to Reverend Robert Brzezinski and New Thought Media Network for having us on board here with them, and being on their board with the YouTube channel and Facebook channels. We're glad to add content here.
And I'd just like to say, a hello from Wayne, who says howdy from Calgary. Thank you so much for joining us. And we really appreciate your presence. I really don't have any questions to start us off with. I think that, giving an orientation to the texts and the version that we're using, which I think is important as we reference the material, and then just kind of take it from there, and hopefully get into some of the foundational beginning teachings. I think would be great.
Okay, we can definitely do that. Well, let's talk about the three books. There's three books in one, and it's called a combined volume, right? But this is called the original edition. And the reason for the pearls on the book is because pearls are considered to be unique, non-fungible, and in their structure as well. And A Course in Miracles is pure in its intent. It's non-fungible, and it's something that is bringing forth a very high vibration of teaching, and it's from our brother Jesus Christ, Jesus as Christ consciousness, as he would often say, "When you see me, you see the Father." And what we do with this is we practice daily with the workbook lessons, and we read the textbook as the foundation. But however you are led to do it. People ask me, what should I do first? The manual for teachers obviously can come along at any time for you, and you will be guided. Spirit will guide you when Spirit feels that, okay, this is a time. You'll get that nudge if you're really focused on this coursework to read the manual for teachers, and you'll kind of know when that is. And we'll bring some of that content in here probably from time to time as well. But the manual for teachers is beautiful, and it brings in some descriptions of terms. And so at some point, you're going to want to look through there and see, okay, I want to look at this and see how those kind of help to requalify some of the terms that you might be using and have been using in your studies, in your work, in your spiritual pathway. But the other two books, which are quite lengthy, are the textbook and the Course in Miracles workbook. So the textbook is about 350 pages, and that's really kind of the heart of the Course in Miracles. Now, again, I call it the graduate study of spirituality. You can study this for years and years and years. And when do you know that you're done with this work? It's when you have become the elevated self of form, okay, in form, which means that you've joined in union and relationship with spirit. And that joining, that melding of mind is what we are looking to do here as we begin to understand what the Course in Miracles is teaching us. So the textbook is written in Shakespearean iambic pentameter. And that can be a little bit challenging. And Jesus, scribed it this way intently for us to cause us to slow down and read it more intently and more in a dedicated way, just to to mine out the gold that's in there. And I remember the first year, and I was talking about this last week, I read it 5 times. I read the textbook 5 times in my first year of studying. And I was just in a unique place where I could dedicate the time to do it. And I thought, well, by the time I got to number 3, reading it the third time, I thought, I know I've read this before, but I don't think I've ever seen this, and by the time I read it the 5th time, I'm like, I know I've read it before, but I don't remember this. And it just kept going deeper and deeper. And still today, I continue to read it, and we continue to do a daily podcast on the workbook lessons. The workbook lessons will take you through a foundational journey as well, and they both complement each other quite nicely. So today is day 106 of this year, and it's lesson 106 of this year. And it's been tested, using David Hawkins' work of kinesiology and group studies of kinesiology studies, that when Course in Miracles students get to lesson 75, by the time they get to lesson 75, which is about 2.5 months into the course, and the workbook lessons, they start having a shift of consciousness. And, that was one of his hallmark teachings, was levels of consciousness. And I'm talking about Dr. David Hawkins in his work, Power versus Force. And this was a study of kinesiology. So when we are studying A Course in Miracles, it helps us to use that work as well, because it's kind of a roadmap of consciousness. And it's really good to have a roadmap to kind of know, like, you might know where you're going to go. Okay, I want to become enlightened, right? I want to be light and enlightened. Well, what is that? Where's that at? Okay, so to speak. And how do I get there? As I journey through my consciousness, and I'm going back and forth. If I want to go from Michigan to Florida, it's pretty good that I don't end up in Denver and get distracted because I don't have a map. So that roadmap of consciousness is very helpful. And so I recommend that as supplemental material. But getting started, a lot of teachers, and Jesus as well, has said, if you're new to A Course in Miracles, just put all your other materials aside and give yourself 1 year with A Course in Miracles. So we've got 365 workbook lessons, and the 365 workbook lessons are meant to be read one a day. Now, if you don't read one a day, that's no harm, no foul. It's not like you have to do it. In fact, it's better if you come onto a lesson and you feel like, oh, I'm not sure I'm getting this, then that you would share more time. You would give more time with that lesson. Because the Holy Spirit, which is nothing more than your right mind, is your teacher, capital T, teacher, and it's available to you. And you'll discover that the lessons are really taking us into the practice of meditation and quiet and peace and allowing ourselves to be informed by Spirit. And this is very, very important.
Mhm.
So the workbook lessons help set the tempo, I believe, for our studies. And if you have more time, then being able to read 1 or 2 pages a day of the textbook, you'll find that you've read both the manual and the textbook in 1 year. But again, it's not necessary to do that. What he does ask us to do in terms of the workbook lesson is not to read more than 1 a day. We have a tendency, to skip to the end. We want to read the last chapter, or look at the summary of a book or whatever. What does it really mean? And Jesus is asking us to be patient with ourselves. You've been learning, we've been learning, I've been learning what the world has been teaching for decades, right? 24/7. The ego mind, the construct of fear doesn't let up at all. It's teaching us 24/7. And so it's very helpful if we allow ourselves some patience in learning this thought system. So this is a new thought system. It's a thought reversal system. And so you may find yourself, if you're new to A Course in Miracles, getting a little tripped up initially with some of the language. You'll find that it's a throwback to some Christian theology language, and there's some correction of words in the that has been used in the Bible as far as the meaning of those words and what those words mean. Words like atonement and forgiveness are given completely new definitions in A Course in Miracles. And it really turns everything upside down, but it really doesn't. It turns everything right side up because everything the world is teaching is upside down. And that's what we begin to discover. So we have to be patient. I just say we should be patient with ourselves and give ourselves time to begin to settle into the rhythm that A Course in Miracles will establish for us in our life. And after about 2 or 3 months, and right now we're about a little over 3 months, day 106, right? Of this year that we've been doing the workbook lessons. If you would like to start the workbook lessons, if you're brand new and you'd like Rev René and myself to kind of coach you through that, you can go to our website, truethought.org, and just click on ACIM lessons, and you'll see all of the lessons are there, and you'll see that we are recording them in a podcast system, and you can just click on that and listen to it. So what we do is we read the lesson there, and then we comment about it afterwards. And so that's, I believe, we hope that's a real help to new students of A Course in Miracles. So the other part then, and what we'll be doing here more, is kind of getting into the textbook. Now, to just spend a half an hour or 45 minutes once a week on the textbook would take a long time to get through it because it's over 600 pages. And again, it would take some time to do that, but it is circuitous and it is supported by the workbook. So when students ask me, where should I start? Should I start with a textbook or should I start with the lessons? I tend to recommend the lessons to start a practice and become devoted to that, and then start letting the textbook inform the lessons. And you'll find ultimately that the lessons are informing the textbook.
Mhm.
Would you like to add anything to that, Claudia?
Yeah, for me, I started with the lessons. That was something that I could do. I think it's funny because the first couple times that I did the lessons, they say only do one a day. And egoically, I wanted to be on the exact day of the year, you know. And if so, I would get to like about lesson 70, and then it would be like, oh, I missed some days, and I've got to wait now until next year. Somewhere in my mind, that's how it would be. And today, well, it helps that we do a podcast. So, but the commitment to do them daily and not to do more than one at a time, because each one is so rich and they do build upon each other. And what I found is even if you just pick up wherever you are, because it is circuitous, you will get what it's teaching. There are threads, there are topics that are being taught. And yes, it begins like the first 50 lessons, I believe, are the reversal of the thought system, are really shining the light on the egoic thought system, the mind of fear, and helping us to recognize that and to dismantle that. And I'm not sure exactly where, but then it begins to focus then on the new thought system, the thought system of love, the thought system of the Holy Spirit. I think it's really important. I too started out with the blue book, the foundations book, and then I moved to the book that we're talking about here. And I love what is added back in. And your statement about the Holy Spirit being nothing more than your right mind is something that you find in this edition that was very instrumental for me, because it seemed that by the time I became attracted to the science of mind and religious science, I felt like I was going more towards oneness. And then when I first started reading A Course in Miracles, it felt like I was going back to two-ness. And when I have the understanding of the Holy Spirit, nothing more than my right mind, and as you continue past some of the Christian terminology that could be a trigger, we can see how the redefinition of, like you didn't mention in your list, like salvation, and forgiveness, and even the concept of Christ, and all of that gets redefined and updated, if you will, or cleared of the baggage of these terms. And so I think it's really important to kind of suspend your the resistance, and approach it with an open mind. Notice where the triggers are. Like, of course, one of the triggers, and we kind of talked about that last week for me, is the masculine terminology. So you change it in the way that it makes sense for you, but being careful not to change the meaning of it, because he and him can refer to God and can refer to the Holy Spirit. And there is a distinction, even though ultimately it's all one. But the Holy Spirit is the bridge to assist us. So anyway, that's all I really wanted to add at this point. I know you're laying the foundation for your introduction, and so yeah, carry on.
Okay, very good. Well, people
Oh,
say,
there is one more thing. I love what you said about that we are companions in
yeah,
this. That
yeah,
that when we read it, when we approach the lesson, the idea of being companioned by Spirit, by Holy Spirit, by Jesus, whatever, however that works for you, and to pause before a lesson or a reading and just breathe and center and imagine yourself companioned. Now, it's certainly helpful to be in a group, and yet this was intended and written for a self-study as well. And so I just want to share that as an addition.
well, and then that's a very important point, that it's a self-study. It's a work of self-study. But it's really important, I believe, to be in a group of like-minded people who are studying the material. Now, I would advise against being in a group of people who are just, you know, struggling and attempting to guess at the deeper meanings of the course. Uh, it has a particular foundational structure, and if we miss that, and we can see it more, we can read it as a more literal work, but there is a lot of sublimity in the instruction of it, and that's why I think it's important to have some support and help. As I said, I read it 5 times through in the first year. It took me about 2 years to do the workbook because I was typing it up. I really wanted to get it. I mean, I was really dedicated to it. It was a calling for me, and it still is a deep calling for me. And we study it every day. And there are passages in the textbook that I could not understand even after several years when they finally became clear to me. So people want to know, what is the Course in Miracles really teaching? And can you tell me that in 10 minutes? No, you really can't, because it takes, enlightenment is a lifetime endeavor. And just learning truth and learning a thought system is really, and the way that, Reverend René and I refer to this is it's like learning a new language. So that would be like me asking you, can you learn, let's say you only speak English and you've only ever been exposed to English, can you teach me how to speak Spanish in 10 minutes? Well, I'm pretty sure that you are French, or Chinese, whatever. Pick a hard one. And then ask yourself, can I learn that in 10 minutes? Well, you can't. I mean, no, you can't, because it's a new language. It's the language of the heart. It's a completely
And
different
just,
language.
yeah. And
Go
just
ahead.
like learning a new language, it takes quite a while. It actually takes an immersion to think in that language,
It does.
because we're always translating, one language to another. And so I guess this is really part of the conversation where we're like, be gentle with ourselves,
So, yeah,
that it takes what it takes. It takes time. And for, some people, a long time. For others, it's like when you're ready, the teacher's there and you got it. But it is definitely a different language, and to think in that language. And I do think that the other curriculum is teaching the same thing, like the science of mind, and we are teaching a reversal of thought system, and that takes practice, and there's a discipline in it. And in time, we do begin to think, like the way I thought 15, 20, 30 years ago is completely different now, and that is through the practice of these curricula.
okay.
So,
So I'm going to just show my book here, right? And then I'm going to ask Claudia to show her book.
yeah. All right. First of all, it's got duct tape, and where is the camera? Oh, it's right in front of me.
Yeah, push it a little closer to the camera. You see her version. You see her version, and the difference, hers and mine. There's no
Yeah.
right or wrong way to do this. And what you see in her book is lots of notes on the edges and underlining, and
I cross-reference to the Bible. I cross-reference to Science of Mind, and to the Way of Mastery, and to A Course of Love. So I like cross-reference it all. And lo and behold, I find the same teachings.
yeah,
It's just a different pathway and curriculum that leads to the thought reversal system, which this one, to me, with the emphasis on forgiveness, is actually unique.
yeah.
And the emphasis on outlining and illuminating for us the ego machinations or the way the ego operates.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I did want to add that this kind of takes us beyond some of those earlier teachings from 100 years ago. They just didn't have the full story, if I can use that phraseology, that was given to us by Jesus through Helen Schachtman in 1975. It was first published, so this is only 45 years old, but it's traveling around the world very quickly now and been translated into dozens of languages. So one more thing. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so we only have like a couple minutes left. How do we want to leave the conversation, and what do we have to look forward to?
Well, what I'd like to do is to get into the textbook next week, and we'll start talking about that. There are 50 principles of miracles in chapter 1 in the Foundation for Inner Peace, the Blue Book version, and in the Foundation and in the JCIM edition, this edition, we'll just call this the Black Pearl edition. There's 53. And this is going to be what we're going to be following. Now, if you go to jcim.net, you can read this book online. You can order this book. You can get this book. You can get this version of the book. And I don't know I can't remember how much it costs. There's softback copies, there's hardback copies, and that was what I was going to share next. But next week, we'll get into the principles of miracles. And even the first one, we can talk about that for half an hour. There's no difficulty in miracles. There's no order of difficulty in miracles. Mm-hmm. And so we'll be talking about that throughout our study. And what we do discover is that it's circuitous in that it keeps going around and around. I got to get used to my camera here. Because it keeps bringing us back to these simple principles. And we're going to be talking about principles, and we call them true thought principles. And we call this episode and this teaching here on New Thought Media Network True Thought Miracles, because it's in reference to A Course in Miracles and the work of that, okay? The work that Jesus did to communicate this. And there's more. And some people read this a few times and think, oh, I've got this. And then they go to these meetings and they start arguing their point of view. I'm not really interested in arguing points of view with you. But we are interested in your comments. We're interested in your questions. It's very, very important. And so when you run into text areas or even workbook lesson areas that are challenging and you would like to know more or just more clarity, you can give those comments, down below or over here or wherever our comment section is. And we're glad to answer questions. So I just want to open it up before we close today. If anybody has any questions, anybody that's watching with us right now, do you have any questions or comments that you want to share? We'll take those on briefly here before we close. Are you following the comments, Claudia?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so we're good to go, right? So we're going to try to keep this to about half an hour. We could easily go 2 hours, and we've asked Robert to give us an hour. And if more people join us and the questions start coming and it begins to flow, and that's what happens as we open up, right? Then Spirit begins to inform our conversation. And when we're talking about the textbook and the workbook lessons, sometimes we're going to have some deeper conversations. And we're not just going to say, oh, the clock's running, so we got to stop. We're here to be guided through this teaching, and that's what we'll do. We're going to follow that guidance and follow our heart. So we hope that you will stick around and that you be okay with that. We really are intent here to just truly be helpful, but this is part of our practice as well. And again, if you're interested in helping, getting some assistance in the workbook lessons, you can go to truethought.org and just go to our ACIM lessons menu option, and you'll see them recorded there. And we record them every day. And I'm going to suggest you do that, because you'll find, especially if you don't have this copy of the book, you'll find that we're just reading it directly from this book, and the instructions that Jesus gives us about how to approach the workbook's lessons is there. But we're going to begin next Friday with a content on with this episode. And we're probably going to be shifting our time, and I apologize for that. We're going to be talking with Robert about that. We've had something that's come up in my life that I need to make changes for. And we might have to shift the hour that we do this, but whatever that is, we're going to be consistent with. Once we, pin that down, we're going to be consistent going forward in that. So if you're watching us today at this hour, we hope it's convenient for you. And we hope maybe we can stick to it, but it looks like we're going to have to shift it just slightly. But we do intend to be a regular and consistent here on New Thought Media Network with this Course in Miracles teaching. Anything else you want to add, honey?
No, I think we're complete. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So let's just do a quick little pray out here. Let's just come together in a moment of silence. Let's take a good deep breath. And we're just going to say, in deepest gratitude, thank you, Spirit, for being with us in this time together. We hope that we are serving this community. We know that this practice is affording us an opportunity for connection and dialogue, and the enhancement of our lives is taking place even as we speak. And so it is.
And so it is.
Well, God bless you guys for being here. Thank you so much for being here. And as we often regularly say in our course podcast, we just end by saying, stay the course.
Stay the course.
Stay the course. And so it is. And we'll see you next week. Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah.
Bye.